Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including 11 offices in the Baton Rouge area, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank, banking with greater momentum. And by Stewart & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Mansurs on the Boulevard, we're out to lunch with Stephanie Regal. Stephanie Regal is a broadcaster and editor of Baton Rouge Business Report. It's business Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Regal. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Sports today is big business in the United States, and Baton Rouge is no exception. Since 2006, sporting events lured here have helped generate an economic impact of more than $300 million. And not only does Baton Rouge host sporting events, it produces an impressive number of athletes. What is the source of our untapped potential, and how do we unlock it? My guests today are experts in this field and are doing their part to grow Baton Rouge's sports sector. Pat Fellows is a serial entrepreneur who, among other things, created the Louisiana Marathon in 2012. In the 5 years since, it has grown to become Baton Rouge's premier sporting event after Tiger football and attracted nearly 9,000 runners from all 50 states and 40 foreign countries at its 2016 event. Pat also brought his popular concept to the Mississippi Gulf Coast with the first annual Mississippi Gulf Coast Marathon, and in his spare time, he's a personal trainer and a triathlon coach, as well as a downtown restaurant owner. Pat, I don't know how you do it all, but we're looking forward to hearing about it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. Mack Chiulli is CEO and Sports Performance Director of Traction Sports Performance, an elite sports performance institute focused on enhancing all areas of athletic performance. Traction Sports has 2 Baton Rouge locations, employs dozens of trainers, coaches, and nutritionists, and his 20,000 square foot facility on Burbank Drive attracts NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball pros from around the country. Aspiring NFL players actually come to Baton Rouge every year now for Traction's NFL Combine Devleopment Program. It's got to be one of the best kept secrets in Baton Rouge. Mack, we look forward to hearing about it. Welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
Well, Pat, I want to start with you. The Louisiana Marathon is celebrating its 5th anniversary. It's grown tremendously, and you and your partners first got the idea for this back in 2010. Y'all told me recently that you went to a marathon in Fargo, North Dakota, and looked around and said, they can attract 20,000 runners to North Dakota. We can do that here in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, so we started at Craig Sweeney, Danny Bourgeois and I. Craig and I had sat down. We were talking about bringing a 10K back to Baton Rouge. You know, they had the Great River Road run, and we sat down and was like, we really don't have a 10K like that. Maybe we should do something bigger. And at the same time, rock and roll was coming to New Orleans. They had just bought the Mardi Gras Marathon.
Okay.
So we were like, you know, why not Baton Rouge? You know, our initial idea was right before they announced that rock and roll had bought Mardi Gras in New Orleans was, could we get rock and roll here? You know, could we just facilitate that? And then not a month or so later, they announced that partnership, and we're like, well, the heck with it, we'll just do our own. And so, you know, what started out as kind of a meeting over like, let's do a 10K, let's do this, turned into having a 5K, a kids race, a quarter marathon, a half, and a full,
and it's
for like
really,
the whole weekend.
And it's really a huge event. I mean, it is a weekend of events.
It is.
It's first class professionally. I've run it several times, and it's great.
Yeah, when we started out, we wanted to bring, you know, the full deal. You know, at the time I was also working for Mizuno selling running shoes and had been to Boston, Chicago, and some of the bigger marathons, and we wanted to have the expo experience. We wanted it to have a feel of marathon week. And that's, you know, when you're in Boston for the Boston Marathon, everybody in town, whether or not they run or not, they're fired up about Marathon Week. It's like a big deal.
Oh, yeah, no question.
And it might have to do with them having the race on Monday and people getting off on Patriots Day, and so they're drinking and watching the event. But that may be part of the allure. But we've tried to create that here. Was
it difficult to get sponsors in those early first couple of years? It was. You know, what we found in the first couple of years is that everybody's kind of perception of what a race event was a pretty small, kind of smaller scale event. And we were talking about, in our eyes, we were building something big. And
there was kind of a disconnect between the biggest races that were here already and what we were trying to do. And it was kind of after seeing it the first year and the second year and going, oh, wow, this is what they were talking about. This is like a world-class event. This is like what they do at Rock and Roll all over. This is a smaller version of what they do at the Chicago Marathon. And those are the things that you kind of have to go through it to really kind of feel what it is. And we're seeing the same thing with Mississippi. Is there's a lot of support and a lot of groundswell with like, hey, this is going to be a great thing. But on a smaller scale, when you're talking to some of the smaller restaurants and the mom and pop stores around there, they've never seen a running event this large there.
Right.
So it's hard for them to kind of, you know, some of the larger companies can get behind it, but getting the full community behind it takes a couple years.
You've grown a great event with a national following. Mack, you've also managed to grow a national following, but with the athletes who come down here to train with you. You didn't start as a trainer, at least not as a kid. You had hoped to be a baseball player yourself, and then an injury sidelined you. How did you get into the training, and how did you grow this business to now attract so many national caliber athletes?
Well, you know, I always aspired to be a professional baseball player, and much like most young kids, you know, aspire to be a football player, baseball player, basketball, whatever it was. I was a really good player. I found out, you know, the hard way. I tore my shoulder up my senior year in high school. I still was able to get a scholarship to Nicholls State University to play baseball. I did a year of rehab there and was never quite the same player. At that time, I fell in love with the process of rehab and spending a lot of time with the trainers and the strength coaches and stuff. And, you know, I made the decision.
So it was through your injury that you became
through
familiar
my injury,
with it.
yeah.
Interesting.
And, I decided at that time which way I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to be involved in sports. I could never be involved in anything else. You know, that's all I'm good at is sports. And I decided that, you know, I wanted to prevent, you know, people from getting injured. I want to prevent kids from getting injured. I learned through my process that it was everything that I was doing that led to my injury. It wasn't baseball to sport. It was how I was preparing to play baseball and all the things I was doing wrong. So I made the decision in college that, hey, I was going to try to prevent injuries. I wanted to be the guy that stopped the 16-year-old kid from hurting his arm and doing that. And
do a lot of kids and young athletes do it wrong? I mean, and now that you're in this business, do you find it?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel it's getting worse and worse because of the specific sport nature that we live in today. You know, kids are playing specific sports a lot longer, a lot younger, at a much higher level. As the training is getting better and better, the demands on kids and athletes is getting more and more. So it's kind of a two-headed sword where, you know, even though the training is getting better, they're getting more demands on the kids. So you're always trying to find a balance of, you know, hey, have an off season, prepare your body for whatever it is you're trying to play so that you can play at your highest level, whatever level that is.
Because I would imagine there's, for instance, like a lot of core strength that they have to have that they may not think about, or just certain muscle groups that they maybe don't exercise enough.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when you're throwing a baseball hard, you know, you're putting a lot of pressure on your shoulder and your rotator cuff and your elbow. So if you don't prepare your body, if you don't stabilize your shoulder, if you don't have good core strength, if you don't have lower body strength, if you don't have balance and coordination and all those things and the whole body working in symmetry, you're going to create problems. Your body is one of the greatest gifts in the world, and it's the greatest machine in the world, and it will find a way to compensate. But through that compensation, you're going to start to, you know, injuries will start to rear their ugly head.
So how did you all start to attract NFL and NBA and Major League Baseball players to your facility here?
Well, it started off with 1 and became 2, then 4, and you know I had the privilege to work for a guy by the name of Mack Chiulli in New Orleans, who is a world-renowned trainer. I did my internship with him, and he hired me to be a performance trainer for him, starting out in New Orleans. And I was blessed with the ability to work with professional athletes right off the bat. I worked with, you know, Roy Jones Jr. and Serena Williams and, you know, athletes like that. And when I came to Baton Rouge, to run a training facility here in Baton Rouge, and it wasn't quite the same feel that I had, which brought me to Open Traction in 2006. And when I opened Traction in 2006, I had created some good relationships through LSU and stuff here in Baton Rouge. And, you know, I always say my first professional athlete wasn't even a professional athlete. It was Darnell Lazar, who was a basketball player at LSU. And through that, I did a good job with him, and it ended up being he told his buddy, and his buddy came, and then it was, hey, you training these two guys. And
so old-fashioned word of mouth.
Old-fashioned word of mouth, yeah, and results.
What does Traction offer that other trainers in bigger markets around the country don't? Surely they're have to be competitive facilities all over.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're blessed to live in, Louisiana is filled with athletes. So, we've decided over time that, we wanted to compete nationally for athletes, so we've, through results and through, obviously LSU being such a hotbed for high level athletes, we've slowly developed relationships, and through their success, so guys moving on to play in the NFL that have trained with us, the kind of word of mouth spreads. Athletes are a very tight-knit group, just like runners, triathletes, and the word spreads pretty quickly amongst certain types of athletes about, hey, I prepared here, I had success, you should try it, and, through success, through results, our industry, you can't fake it. If athletes are doing well, you're going to get more business.
And Pat, you've probably certainly had that experience because you've trained people, you train yourself, but
Sure.
you also train people in the triathlon and running world.
Yeah, and mine is a little bit more, I think, I don't want to say less specific. Most of the things that I work out for people are more workouts for runs. It's different workouts within the run. I don't have the luxury full time to be working on people's form. You almost have to trust. It's like, hey, it depends on who you're working with. Some people I will go out and run with them and do some things with them, but they're just, most of the folks that I'm working with are like yourself, who, I know you've competed in the past. It's like, okay, this is my life. These are the things that I have to do. How can I fit in training for Ironman into this,
Right.
into my life? And, how am I going to get the volume? How am I going to do it without getting injured? How am I going to achieve the goals that I want to, but not have, I don't have an extra 15 hours. Some people every once in a while have a lot of extra time, but most people I have are just busy professionals that have these goals to, within Ironman. Most of them are longer distance triathlon, and then I would say half marathons, marathons. So it's more of the longer distance stuff. So it's interesting. I kind of fell into it after being in the sport for a long time and started writing plans for friends and doing things like that. It was the same sort of thing. It was like word of mouth. It's like, hey, I was able. This guy worked with me, and he may not have 50 letters behind his name, but he knows how to fit it into life. And that was the biggest thing I think that I brought to the table.
How much raw athletic talent do y'all think we have here, for a market this size?
Oh, Baton Rouge?
Yes.
Plenty.
Tops in the country. Louisiana is filled with athletes, and you hear it even on the national level. We have a tremendous amount of athletes and very gifted athletes in our communities and stuff, and it's, our job as trainers and professionals that we're just trying to get the best and give them the same opportunities that you get on the West Coast or you get in the Northeast. Louisiana's always a little bit behind usually, just because we're more laid back here, culture in Louisiana. But we've tried to, say, hey, just like, him with the Louisiana Marathon, there's, most athletes go to LA or Arizona or Miami and stuff to train. We've said, hey, why not Baton Rouge? Why wouldn't you come here and train where the best athletes in the world are training with the best trainers, and why not Baton Rouge?
That's the great thing, because then you can build a synergy around it, really create a sports economy. Mack, why you're doing this here? Why not do it for a professional team? Why aren't you a conditioning coach for the NFL somewhere?
I get asked that all
fun?
the time. It is, a private entity, but, just my lifestyle, when you're a strength coach or you're doing it for a professional team, you're really at the mercy of the success of the team. So, and unfortunately in my industry as a strength coach or whatever it is, you can be doing the greatest job in the world and all your players can be healthy. And if a coach makes a few bad decisions and they decide they're changing coaches, your job might be in jeopardy despite the type of job that you do. Coaching at the professional level, at the collegiate level, you really have to be willing to move from place to place and, grow that pipeline. I was never really interested in that. I was more interested in developing myself and helping kids in my community. And, it started off just wanting to help kids, and it's just, athletes are nothing but big kids. So it's, we've just created that pipeline from really big kids all the way down to little small kids.
So y'all start with small kids.
Absolutely, yep.
But do you take part-time athletes or the weekend warriors like Pat does, or do you
Absolutely,
all just
yeah.
do serious team?
No,
on
we
the
have
path to-
adult training. In our adult training, what we try to do in our adult training is, create the same atmosphere that an athlete had in college, or or high school, that kind of training, our feel is very sports oriented. If you're a runner, if you're still an active adult, you play softball, you play flag football, or you run races, or you do whatever, we're trying to take what we do from an athletic standpoint. I always say that the difference between sports performance training and fitness training is, we're really not judged on fitness level. We're judged on performance, So if
that's a key difference.
It's a key difference. We're not judged on, hey, I lost 20 pounds and I feel much better. We're judged on, how well you played, or how well you ran your race, or how well you feel. So it's a different type of animal rather than just fitness.
We're talking with Mack Chiulli of Traction Sports Performance and Pat Fellows of the Louisiana Marathon. Pat, let's talk about the business model for a minute. How much money is in this? I mean, is this a very lucrative field to go into? And I know the Louisiana Marathon probably lost money the first couple of years, then broke even, and now it's doing okay. But
yeah, we have created an opportunity for us to make a living doing this. But I'm not getting rich putting on races, right? I mean, that's just how it is. We would if we had 25,000 runners, I don't think we'd be getting rich, because we'd still have
the expenses of 25,000.
You have the expense, everything. Yeah. We work it out at the end, and after every race, we'll go back and we'll have just kind of a breakdown of what do we spend per runner, what does it cost us, what do we charge, and where can we start out our prices, and what all the things that go into that. You've been to the Louisiana Marathon. We have the best after party. Probably than any other marathon in the nation.
It's like a little mini jazz fest.
Yeah, but that comes at a cost, right? And as a runner, if you may get it, but some Joe runner from Wichita goes, why is this race X amount of dollars? Well, then he comes and he sees and he gets to try out food from 20 different restaurants and goes, wow, I've never seen anything like this. It's interesting. Even though they do see that, and they still come to think, well, that's just what I should get now, because we've created this thing. So even if we raise prices a little bit, we sometimes get some pushback on it. But again, I think it's from my standpoint, I would do it. I would be doing this no matter what. We just finally said, hey, if we're going to do it, let's do it on a grand scale, and try to create. I mean, we've done a pretty good job impacting the economy here. It was part we wanted to do it for a living, and it was part this is how we're wired, we're going to be doing this, and it was part regardless of what the income is, the city needs it, and we felt like we needed to put that on to bring something cool to the city. I mean, just probably how you started your gym. It's like, look, I'm going to be doing this anyway. Why not try to attract NFL players and bring those people to us, because we're going to be doing it at a level that we feel is on par with anybody else in the country.
Absolutely.
Let's do it here, and let's bring something cool to our city. I mean, I don't know.
What do sponsors get in return for their however many thousands that they put up?
The companies that do the best with us are the ones that, like Albemarle does a huge wellness piece within their business. So they reach out to all their employees, like, we want you to do this. We'll provide some training plans. We'll do a health and wellness fair. So and everything is geared up to peaking at the Louisiana Marathon. So it's something that they see it as an opportunity to impact their employees from, January when the race is to the next January where the race is again. And it's a piece in their puzzle.
That's great.
For wellness.
Yeah.
So if I look at what a sponsorship is, when I speak with somebody, and I'm not in charge of sponsorship, but it is about, like, hey, it's not just what's going to happen for you on the race day. It's how can we activate from race day to the next race day. So if you said, hey, you know what, and I know you're not writing this check, but if the business report wants to sponsor, and but the race is only in a month away, or how are we going to get value? Well, we get value leading up to it,
right? And
then we're going to get value from that race to the next race. So it's a year-long sponsorship.
Mack, what about your business? How much does it cost to get first-rate training?
It ranges. We try to create, a bunch of different levels. Ultimately you have, there's usually, a couple of different levels. You train with a group of your peers, whether it's, kids your age or adults, and you train within a group, which is the, kind of the entry-level model. And then you get all the way to the private personal stuff. And, you can go as far as, private, training one-on-one with a trainer with body fat analysis and all the technology and recovery treatments and therapy. And it can get really expensive, but, today, being healthy is such a big deal. And it's something that
Yeah, I mean, y'all are in a field that just seems to have limitless potential because fitness and athleticism is so big right now.
And, if you look at the trends of just the fitness industry in general, people don't just work out on their own anymore. They just don't. I mean, everybody is looking for instruction, whether it's running. People just don't go out and jog without a plan. They don't go, work out at a gym without a plan. Those days are kind of behind us. So, everybody is, taking their health and their own well-being into their own hands, and they're getting into, Pilates classes or spin classes or running clubs or biking clubs or training programs, and that's the where fitness is now. There's a huge market for anybody that can bring anything to the table to help that's enjoyable, that people want to be involved with. And our goal is always just, let's get people up, moving, doing something they love. And, we're taking advantage of, the things that people love to do, and where everybody travels in packs, and athletes will want to do this, and runners want to do this, and cyclists want to do that, and yoga people want to do this, and some people have well-rounded programs. They run, they do yoga, they train, and we're just trying to educate, and that's where this industry is.
What about the CrossFit craze? What do y'all think of CrossFit? Good or evil?
It's not as much of. I look at it as a couple different things. I think that anytime you get people active, that's great. I think that there's a sense of community in it, and what you were just speaking of is in it. I think that athletes thrive in communities. That's why teams work well. But when we used to ride early in the morning, we had a group that went out early in the morning. We rode together, and that's what we did, right? And the group piece is important. I think that CrossFit really taps into that on a lot of different ways. I think that the nature of the exercises that they do are extremely form-based, and that if it's not just the form, it's the speed at which they do things. I think that piece of that model has a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong.
Yeah.
With people that get in over their heads too quickly, they want to be a part of the community that they've created. And I think that there's an opportunity for people to get injured at it. But I think that's with everything, but that's outside looking in, and I don't dog it because I think it works for some people. But
my answer would be it's good and evil. My answer would be, I get asked this question all the time, how do you feel about CrossFit? And my answer is always very similar to his. I think it's a great thing because it was a new form of bringing people into fitness. It's a great thing. But just like anything, triathlon coaches or performance trainers, there's good ones and there's bad ones.
Right.
And I just think that people have to know that when somebody's instructing you, that they are certified and they know, they are educated, and they know the only problem with CrossFit is it's very easy to become a certified CrossFit coach. And you might have somebody that does, a weekend test, and they're able to bring 40 adults in a room and start teaching them very complicated lifts, where some of the CrossFit instructors have been doing this for 20, 30 years.
Right.
So it's really just a good in some places, evil in some. It's just you got to, I always say make an educated decision on, which programs you join, and make sure, do your research and know that, hey, this person or this, company really knows what they're doing, and they have highly educated people that are teaching us. I always say you don't take financial advice from somebody that's never been involved in finance.
No, that's very good advice.
I mean, think about it this way. If you're a runner and you just decided to, I'm going to run a marathon, and then you've been running 5-10 miles a week, and your coach said, well, you're running 60 miles a week next year. I mean, you wouldn't do that either. And I'm not saying that that's what that happens, but it's every form of fitness can be abused if it's not done correctly.
Absolutely. Where are y'all headed before we have to sign off? Where's the Louisiana Marathon headed? Do you hope to franchise this concept much like the rock and roll? Or
no, I mean the rock and roll business and the business of franchising races, there's a couple big companies that have done that. To be honest, it's the same way I look at it with my restaurants. If I have 4 restaurants because that was what the need was, that's enough. If it turns out that somehow I have 400 because that's what the need was and it organically grew that way, great. The marathon business, I think that, right now I grew up on the Mississippi coast. That's why we went to the Mississippi coast. Mm-hmm. That's part of the deal. Craig, my other partner, Craig Sweeney, and I went to Stanislaus, so we graduated. So bringing something there, it's got 26 miles of beaches. Yeah. It was easy. Louisiana Marathon, we want to see it grow to 15,000. We feel that, I mean, 20 would be great, but to be honest, 15 might be the sweet spot by what our streets can hold.
Right.
So, the goals that we have are for organic growth, executing what we set out to execute with each race, and where it grows to, great. But I don't foresee us putting on 10 marathons. I mean,
that
it's
approach
a tough
makes
deal.
so much sense to me. I love that. Mack, what about you? Where's Traction headed?
I believe we're just scratching the surface of what we really want to be. We're a big training facility. We compete nationally. Our goal is to be one of the top training academies in the country. We've developed. We have one of the top youth baseball programs in the country. We have. We're bringing in athletes from all over the country to train in our programs, and we're excited about the future, and we feel like we're just now scratching the surface of what our potential is, and our goal is ultimately to be one of the premier training facilities in the country and to compete with the big facilities on the West Coast, the Northeast, the Southeast, and really establish ourselves as, if you're looking to get better, if you're an athlete and you're looking to get the best possible place where you can train, you can meet with our nutritionists, you can you really bring yourself to a place where there's not all of the outside things that go on. If you really want to focus and bring yourself to a place where you can take your game to the next level, like we believe Baton Rouge is a great place. We don't have all of the things that the beaches and the palm trees and all the other things that, people go to, but, those can be distractions when you're really training.
Well, Mack, Pat, y'all have great stories to share and unique insights into a sector of the local economy that most people probably don't even think of in business terms. And so we look forward to watching you grow the business of sports here in Baton Rouge and creating additional opportunities for athletes. So thank y'all so much for joining me on Out to Lunch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Pat Fellows, founder of the Louisiana Marathon, among other things, and Mack Chiulli of Traction Sports Performance. You can find out more about the Louisiana Marathon and Traction Sports by following the links on our website, itsbatonrouge.la and wrkf.org. Today's show was recorded live over lunch at Mansurs on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansurs is open for lunch daily from 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti. And our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino and Ann Edelman. You can see photos from this show on itsbatonrouge.la and on our Facebook page. These photos are taken by Ken Stewart. All the music on Out to Lunch is composed and performed by Mitchell Foreman. You can find more of Mitchell's music wherever great jazz is streamed or sold and at mitchellforeman.com. You can get this show as a podcast, you can listen to past shows, and you can keep up with us on all kinds of social media by going to our websites, itsbatonrouge.la and wrkf.org. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansurs for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including 11 offices in the Baton Rouge area, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank, banking with greater momentum. And by Stewart & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.